To CFE's community chat. This is, I believe, our 8th that we've done since COVID hit, and we shifted to remote working, just as all of you have, and they've been really successful. So for those of you who don't know CFE, we are a local Chicago-based nonprofit organization that is focused on providing grants and professional learning opportunities to CPS educators. So our offering shifted a little bit when school buildings closed and everyone started working from home. And the CFE Community Chat Series has been part of that. So we are just thrilled to have all of you with us today. I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar at this point with Zoom. Please keep your microphones muted during the presentation. And if you have questions throughout the course of the presentation itself, you're welcome to pop them into the chat box, and I'll be maintaining that and keeping track of all of those comments and questions. And then once our presenter, Jessica, opens it up for Q&A, you're welcome to use the raise your hand function. So it's a fairly intimate group today. We really encourage you to use that function if you have a question that you want to word in a specific way, or you have sort of an anecdote to go along with it. We would encourage you to do that. Also, just so that you know, our chat today is being recorded. So if you have any issues with being on the video feed, you're welcome to turn that off. And the recording itself, along with the PowerPoint and any resources we discussed today, will be available via our website early next week. So also throughout the course of today's event, please keep your eye out in the chat box for any messages from our team. So Kayla and Jamila are my teammates, and they will be sharing some useful information in the chat box as well. So let's get into it. Today's presenter is Jessica Fong. So among other things, she's a CFE grant winner and was in Action Research, our Arley fellowship. She was one of the fellows a couple of years ago. So the work she's talking about today, she did during that fellowship experience. Jessica is a dual language pre-K teacher at CPS Bellama Thomas Early Childhood Center in McKinley Park. She's been an educator for over 10 years and loves working with the littlest learners. She's also deeply committed to providing inquiry and nature-based education to Black and Brown urban communities. She's presented about nature play to national and international audiences in an effort to provide adults the tools necessary to bring nature play to more children. So Jessica, I will now toss it over to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, everyone. Hello. It's nice to see so many people. So exciting. So as Sarah said, I've been an educator for more than 10 years now. The last 4 years, I think it's been in CPS. And so I'm super excited to share this information with you. I know I see some names that I recognize and some people that I recognize. So this might be a little bit of information that you've heard before, but then after I do the slide piece, presentation piece, we'll get into more of a discussion. And I'm excited about that piece to be able to really have a conversation with everybody about how we can bring nature-based play to more of our CPS students, more and more of our CPS students, especially. I will also frame it with the COVID situation that we're in now with the pandemic, and thinking about the fall and going back to school, and how nature-based play can really help us mitigate those risks and make it much more comfortable for everybody, for social, emotional, and mental health for the children and teachers as well. So we'll get into that after the presentation piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And it is, where is it here? Let's see, am I doing this right? You would think that after all these months, we would know how to do all these things correctly. So thumbs up if you see my screen. Yes, perfect. Okay, all right. So here we go. I'm gonna make it bigger just for myself, I think, and maybe for you too. So this is the research that I did with Arley, as Sarah mentioned, with the Chicago Foundation for Education, which is what we're in right now, right? This group. But so this was now, I think, 2 years ago that I did this research in my school, my former school. So I currently teach at Bellama Thomas Early Childhood Center in McKinley Park. So it's in the southwest side of Chicago, right near Bridgeport and Pilsen and Gage Park, that sort of Brighton Park areas. It's a very small community, so I sometimes give people references to where McKinley Park is. But this research I did at John Spry, which is a school in Little Village. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about research in general about nature play. And as Sarah said, pop any questions that you might have into the chat box during, or just, I don't mind people just shouting out questions if you have something that you need clarified in the moment. So go ahead and yell it out if you need to know something right away. So I'm going to share with you some research about nature play. I'm going to give you a little bit of context as to where I did my research. The findings of my research, and then also some action steps for you. And that piece will be more where we get into more conversation about nature play. And actually, before I started this, I wanted everybody to start thinking about nature play and nature in their own lives. So before I go on with this presentation, I want everybody to just take a moment. It's a little bit of a meditative moment. So I'm going to ask you if you're comfortable to close your eyes and think about, what is your favorite childhood memory? So think about, what did it sound like? What did it feel like? What did it look like? And I'm going to give you a couple moments here in quiet. So we'll sit all together in meditative quiet to think about that. And so if you're ready, and I forgot to say smell like too, if you're ready. If anyone would like to share what was their favorite childhood memory, go ahead and unmute yourself and yell it out. Or don't yell it, say it.
I'll share mine, Jessica.
Sure.
One of them is my brother and my best friend who lived next door and I used to set up lawn chairs in the garage when it would storm, and we would watch thunderstorms from my parents' garage, and we would do it all summer, and it just was, I can conjure the memory perfectly still today.
Beautiful. You could probably smell it. You can probably hear it. Yeah. I can even hear it. I'm thinking about like a rainstorm in the summer. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share their favorite childhood memory? Oh, you have to unmute yourself. I see you talking, but I don't think you're unmuted.
There we go. I can go.
There we go. Yes, Annabelle. Yes.
Yes. My parents live in the Southwest, and when it's really nice away from the city, we have all these lights, and so we would look in the night sky, and you could see all the stars, and just we would lay a blanket. There was times where like my dad would take us up into the roof and would lay there and just stare at the stars. Yeah, so it's really nice memory.
Beautiful. Oh, and the Southwest, the smells of the Southwest must be so different from the smells of, obviously, from the Midwest, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Annabelle. One more? Is anybody willing to share? These are beautiful memories. Yes, I see you raising your hand. Yes.
I think one of mine was going fishing with my dad. He would load us all up in the car, drive us up in some lake in northern Illinois somewhere. And then, of course, we got to stop and get the Tombstone pizza, which now I think is disgusting, but back then it was awesome. And and just like, yeah, spend the day fishing and just hanging out. I think that was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Leslie, Annabelle, and Sarah. If anybody else wants to share and toss it into that chat box, go right ahead and we can all read it and read each other's childhood memories. And so a lot of nature play people will start their workshops and stuff like that with this question. So if you get into nature play more and go going to more conferences, which there are a lot, and meetings and things like that, you might see this question again, because what we want to show with this question is that most people's memories, I might even go ahead and venture to guess like 99% of you, memories, favorite childhood memories are in nature or something to do with nature. And so those are mostly everybody's strongest memories. And a lot of, researchers have sort of had these conversations with people all over the world, and they've found that it's similar all over the world, that people's favorite childhood memories have to do with something about nature. And so thinking about this with our children that we're working with now in this environment that has changed around them, right? Children haven't changed in the past thousands of years, right? But their world around them has changed, and they have less access to nature, less time to be in nature, mostly because of adults doing, right? And so as teachers, what can we do to provide these favorite childhood memories to our students in the classroom if they're not able to have these memories at home or experiences at home? So that's a way to just get you started to think about this. So we'll get into this presentation. And so as I was saying, the research, I'm going to share the context of where I did my research, the findings, and the action steps that you guys can take, and we'll get into more of a conversation. Oh, sorry. There we go. So my topic, my question of the research, my leading question was, what happens when children visit and play in a nature playground, and how does that compare to the classroom and traditional playground? And so the reason that I did this research is because the first year that I was working at Spry in Little Village, we had a nature playground within 2 blocks from the school, and had just been built a few months before I started working there. So I really lucked into it. And I started to notice that when the children went to the nature playground, and so a nature playground, for some of you who may not know, is basically a space that is like a playground, but instead of having slides and plastic things, it's all nature based. So there are trees and stumps, rocks, sticks, pebbles. A lot of these more formal nature playgrounds, like man-made ones, will have like a little water feature. So maybe a pump with water or a tiny little stream or something like that. Where children will be able to play and move, things like that. So that's a nature playground. And so I noticed that when I would take my children to the nature playground, there was less conflict and less fighting than there was in my classroom, and also in the traditional playground that the school has. And so this was anecdotal. And so I decided to do a formal research project, a little bit formal, with Arlie, to see if that was really the case when it came down to it. And so I'll give you a little bit of the benefits of nature play. And I should update this because there's more and more research every year about nature play and the benefits. But so social emotionally, when children play outdoors, it gives them the opportunity to develop social skills, confidence, and self-esteem. So if you think about nature play, usually and hopefully, and the best nature play is when adults are not around, or they're just on the periphery, just supervising, making sure everything is okay. And so when in these situations, when children are on their own, they're really able to negotiate with each other, have these moments of conflict and get through it without adult intervention. And that really builds a lot of confidence and self-esteem in children, because they're the ones leading the play. They're the ones that are leading what's happening in their world at the nature playground. So gross motor wise, when children are playing in an uneven terrain, they develop that muscle that they develop a lot of muscles that they don't usually use on a flat terrain, right? When they're running on something very flat, they're not developing all of those complex muscles. And so nature playground affords those challenging terrains because there's stumps and rocks and things and uneven surfaces where they're really using all of their muscles in a more complex way. And a lot of pediatricians are seeing children having difficulties with fine motor activities, because when you don't develop those large muscles, so we're talking about like your abdominal muscles, your leg muscles, your thigh, all those really big core muscles, you're really not able to use your fine motor muscles because they're all connected, right? So your abs help control your arms help control your hands, and your hands obviously control your fingers. And so pediatricians are starting to see, and I'm sure you as teachers have started to see, that children are coming more and more with less ability to hold a pencil correctly, or cut with scissors, or do those fine motor activities. And then language development, which is what ended up being the focus of my research, was the language development that I saw in the nature playground versus the classroom in the traditional playground. And so in language development, when children are playing in the outdoors, again, because they're talking with each other, they're negotiating, they're getting through conflicts, they're working together, they're using very complex language. And then also they're using a lot of pretend play language. So especially younger children, when they play in outdoor spaces, they'll create scenarios and you have to follow that scenario. If you are familiar with improv, when somebody starts a scene and you have to follow that scene, right? You have to follow the storyline. If somebody says, well, the cat was on the roof, the next person can say something that's totally not related, right? Well, then the whale went, that doesn't make sense, right? So the children have to really use complex language and be able to follow the storyline when they're playing outdoors with each other. So those are the three broad categories of the benefits of nature play. And Mr. Rogers, who is a great early childhood advocate, always says that play is serious learning. And so I really believe that, especially with young children, but I would argue that this applies for infants all the way up to adults and beyond, right? The play that older children do in nature is different. It will look different. So for those of you who work with older children, they will play in nature socially. So sitting in little groups and talking with each other, that's their form of play. If you can get them engaged in community-based nature activities, stewardship activities, older children really love to do nature-related things in that way where it's structured, and really find a lot of enjoyment in that. And that's the way that older children will play in nature. So this is I always put this in all of my presentations, so this is not new, but in this moment that we're living in right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, this picture hits even harder for me, even closer to home, because this is a picture of a mosaic, if you will, of thousands of images of children playing in nature-based schools all over the world. And what really struck me when I first saw this image was how white all of the children are, right? They're all white children. We're talking about thousands of pictures that were put together to make one large image. And so the question hit me is, who is benefiting from nature play? Knowing that it has a lot of benefits, and knowing that right now with this pandemic, when we go back in the fall, if we go back in the fall, being outside will really be helpful for all of us to try to mitigate the virus and try to dilute the virus particles, right? When you're indoors, you're more at risk than when you're outside. And so who is going to benefit from this when we go back to school in the fall, and who is currently benefiting from nature play? And so this graph shows you the number of children, or the percentage of children who are in a nature-based pre-K or kindergarten in the US. And this is from 2017, so it's not that old. And as you can see, 83% of the children who are enrolled in nature-based pre-Ks or kindergartens are white. And everybody else is at the top, and it's a very small percentage, with 7% being Latino, 6% Asian, 2% Black, and then everybody else, which is indigenous populations and things like that, are 1%. So it's a very small amount of children who are benefiting from nature play who are from Black and brown communities. This is a map of the nature-based playgrounds that are in the city of Chicago. So these are formal spaces that were made either by the Chicago Park District or an organization called Neighbor Space, who is also working to bring nature play to children in the city of Chicago. And as you can see, most of them are on the north side. And I'm working very hard with these organizations to try to bring more to the south side. It's not for lack of space. As we know, there's a lot of vacant land on the south and southwest side of the city. So it's just a matter of funding, and it's a matter of people being invested and excited to bring these experiences to young children on the south and southwest side. So the context, I'm going to give you a little bit of context of where I did this research. So as I said, it's at John Spry Community School in Little Village in La Villita. The neighborhood is majority Mexican and Mexican American communities, both first generation and immigrant populations. The school is a pre-K to 8th grade school, so it's about 500 and some odd children. The population, again, is Mexican, Mexican American. And the classroom that I was working in that particular year was a full day, 20 kid pre-K classroom. And so the full day rooms are usually reserved just for the 4 and 5-year-olds, so the children that are going to kindergarten the following year. So this is a playground. This is just a typical plastic playground right in front of the school that we would take the children. And this is my classroom. And so there are two pre-Ks at Spry, and I was doing my best to do an inquiry-based, nature-based, Reggio, ask if anyone's familiar with the Reggio Emilia approach, or Reggio Emilia sort of space on my own. And so there were a lot of loose parts in the room. There were a lot of different things like that where the children can play. And then this is the jardincito. So this is the nature playground that was luckily 2 blocks away from the school. It used to be a vacant lot, and they had transformed it to a nature play space. So I focused my study on 3 children, looking at 3 case study children. Renata was 4 years old, and I chose her because she was just very precocious, very smart, fully bilingual, could answer English and Spanish, could speak in English and Spanish, and just go back and forth seamlessly. I picked Stephanie because she was a little challenging. She'd never been to school at all before. She'd never been to daycare at all before. So she had no idea how to even be in school, how to sit on a rug, how to get in the line, just all of these things that are pretty basic in pre-K. She really struggled with because she'd just never been in that situation before. And she actually turned 5 pretty much right when we started school. So she'd spent 5 years at home with no sort of formal education. Danny also turned 5 pretty soon in the school year. And I picked him because he was so creative. As you can see in his hand, he had built this little, I think it was a bat. He built with like popsicle sticks and paper and markers and glue. And so he's just really creative, such a really creative kid, but he really struggled with social interactions. And in fact, would spend most of his day being alone, playing alone. And there were other indicators to me that sort of stood out and made me think that this child might need additional supports. And towards the end of the year, we were able to get him an IEP so that he would have something ready to go when he went to kindergarten and had additional supports. So going back to the benefits of nature play, we're going to focus on language development, which is what I focused on in this research. And so I did 2-minute videos, more or less 2-minute videos of all of the case study children. And I looked through all of these videos and I coded all of these videos for different things. And what really stood out to me was the language that the children were using while they were playing. And so when children, especially young children, can use complex language and are given those situations where they can use that complex language, they're really building these foundational skills that will help them when they get to more formal academic settings, which are like kindergarten and 1st grade. So if you can orally tell somebody a story from beginning to end and make it make sense, as I was saying earlier, then when a teacher asks you in kindergarten or 1st grade, let's write a story, they've already have that foundational skill orally. So the oral skills really transfer to the more formal academic skills of reading and writing. And so giving children these experiences in nature where they're able to create this complex language and complex stories and pretend play, provide them that foundation for later, more academic skills. So the 7 different types of language, that I found in my videos were pretend play language. So that is language where children are saying to each other, let's do this, you're the mommy, I'm the daddy, the dinosaurs are coming, and then we're gonna go into the little house. So they're pretend play language. Cooperative language is where children help each other out. So somebody asks for help, the other one helps them. Conflict language is fighting, so screaming and yelling at each other and fighting. Minimal language was no language at all, or just screaming. Social emotional language was when children would share, I'm sad, or I'm happy, or he's happy. Self-talk is when the children would talk to themselves while they were playing, usually when they were alone. And then teacher directed was when they would talk to me or a teacher in particular and say, teacher, look at this. So I always forget I have these videos to show and I didn't test them. So hopefully these will work. So this is Stephanie in the little red coat with the light blue leggings. And she's on the slide with her friend Ariana, who's at the top of the slide. She's wearing like a pink and black coat, if you can see those there. So this is them at the regular playground. I have to hit play. There we go. Can you hear anything? You can't hear anything. Okay, why not? The volume is up here. Anybody know why you wouldn't be able to hear anything? Is there like a tech thing I'm forgetting? I'm gonna bop out because these videos are really great. So I want to take a few seconds here. My apologies, to get this to work for you guys. So does anybody have an idea for let me try one more time over here. Hold on one sec.
So Samantha says you have to click share sound on Zoom.
Where?
Samantha can speak up, or she can. Definitely sounds like she's.
Oh,
done.
sorry guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna be bad at explaining this. There should be like a bar on your screen, I think, where you can like end the call. And somewhere on like the right side of that, there should be like 3 dots that if you click it, there's like an option to share your computer sound.
Share my computer sound. My goodness. I say.
I know a parent showed it to me once.
Okay,
I was like,
audio,
oh.
okay. Mute microphone. Oh my goodness, guys! I didn't think to check that.
Okay.
Let me.
I'm gonna try to pull up Zoom on mine.
Let me see if it
computer.
works. If I make it small. Do you hear anything now, or you just see movement?
Green actually looks like we can't see the full slide right now.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, you know what I could do is maybe let me see if I can find this video. Maybe not in the slide. Maybe that will.
Yeah, sometimes it works if you pull it out of the program.
Right, like just like a tab.
Yeah, they are good. I've seen them
I
many
know. I know, and I didn't think to check the tech sound portion of this.
Samantha, thank you for your help. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry guys.
No.
Really, really nice. And then Jamila said that you can try to reshare your screen.
Oh, like stop it and then start it again.
Try that.
Okay. So first I'm going to try this way. If I can find that other video of the girls first at the playground. I see that one. Oh, here we go. Okay, sorry. Let's try this. Okay, I hear something. Do you hear something? No.
Okay, I think I found it on mine. So there should be like a bar that says you are screen sharing in green and then red stop share. Do you see that?
I do, yes.
Okay, so if you like scroll up on that, there'll be like a mute, stop video, security. All the way on the right, it says more. And if you go down, it says share computer sound.
I see record, meeting info, disable, show names, hide video panel, hide floating, optimize screen share for video clip.
Oh, mine's got a share computer sound.
Is that like a
right above the optimized share for full screen video clip? That's so weird.
Is that maybe like a setting that one has to?
Or you might have different versions or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to share it. I'm going to share with you real quick, Sarah, and maybe you can work on that while I keep going.
Yeah. Did you find? I guess if you can't share your sound, then yeah, let's maybe keep going, and then we can always include the videos on our resource roundup when we include this recording and your PowerPoint.
Okay.
So they'll definitely be shareable. We'll share them. Also, we still only see this strip of your screen.
Yes, I have to fix it. Yeah. All right. So I just shared with you those videos. If you maybe can try to pull them up on your end, that would be awesome. Okay. Now, do you see the whole screen again?
You can keep going, and I'll try to see if I can get these up.
Do you guys see the whole screen again now?
I think we still see
just see a strip. Hold on. Oh, Lord. Okay, let me bring it over here.
There we go.
Okay. There's so many different, I have so many different panels and things I have going here. Okay. So I'll just describe them, although hopefully we can get them to work. Sarah maybe can potentially get them to work. If not, like she said, we'll share them in the resource roundup. But so this is a video of Stephanie and Ariana, and they're at the slide. And Stephanie wants to go up the slide, and Ariana wants to go down the slide, and neither of them wants to let go of their control in the situation. And so basically this was all conflict. So the 2-minute video is them screaming at each other. At some point, Ariana kicks Stephanie and I have to intervene. So for the 2-minute videos, I usually let the 2 minutes just run and I try not to intervene too much. But in this video, I did stop the video and help the girls out because they were starting to hit each other. And so then the other video.
Jessica, do you want me to try? Let me try. Okay, so if you can stop sharing your screen, I'll start sharing. Okay, let's see. Thank you for hanging in there with us, y'all. Okay, let's see here. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Share computer sound. Let's see.
Oh.
¿Está lloviendo? Stephanie, ¿te vas a casar? ¿Sí? Allá va. Cuidado con eso.
Stop it there, Sarah. So that was me intervening because Ariana was starting to kick her friend. And then we can show the next one. Will you show the next one?
Sure.
And so the next one, while she pulls it up, is the same pair of girls. So Stephanie and Ariana at the nature playground this time. And Ariana is at the top in the black coat. And Stephanie is at the bottom in the hot pink coat.
Okay, get on there. Go in the room. Go in Mommy's room. Mommy's gonna go in with you guys. No, this is my tablet. This is, I wanna go to your tablet too. There you go. So don't call Mommy, okay? Call me when there's a zombie. Okay. She's trying to get my sister? I'm the mom, okay? You're the sister, you're the sister. Yeah. I can't. Sister, help me. I've got you, my baby. She's smiling. I'm still smiling. Okay. Mommy, how can I clean? But Mommy up here. Around there. Go around here. Go around here. No, I want to go. Teacher, Fong. I'm scared. I'm trying to down. Okay, ponle pie aquí. Una pie. Esto para aquí.
Slide.
Put your mano aquí. I'll get down there.
There you go. Slide, slide, slide. Good job.
No, I did it. I wasn't scared. Catalina, un pino. You're gonna get off
Yeah, gracias.
Stop it there, Sarah.
I love that one.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I'm so glad that everyone was able to see those videos because those are really the key to all of this is like seeing the kids in action and seeing the differences in the language. So it was pretty apparent that, you know, the kids at the playground were just screaming and yelling and fighting. And these are not one-off videos. I have many videos of them screaming and fighting at the playground. And then at the nature playground, it's the complete opposite. And so you can see all of that rich, complex language the children talking about who's the mommy and the zombies are coming and then we're going to go to sleep and where should we sleep? And then at that last sentence, it always gets me when she's like, I can't get down. And her friend tells her, put your foot here and put your hand here and I'll help you. And then when she finally gets down, Ariana says, I hope everyone heard this, but she said, I knew it wasn't hard. I knew I could do it. Something to that effect. And so that self-confidence that she got at the end when she was able to get through that challenge of coming down a very tall stump. That stump is probably taller than I am, maybe 5 feet, 5.5 feet high. And so she had to slide down to a stump. And so that self-confidence that she got when she was able to do something that was very scary was just great. And so that's also one of the things that Nature Play affords children is being in scary situations like that are not dangerous. So there's a difference between risk and hazards and in Nature Play, and risk is something like Ariana was doing up on the stump. That was risky for her. She's small and that log is very high, so that was risky for her. A hazard would be like a nail on the ground sticking up. That's a hazard. That's something that the children can't decide if they're going to be able to do because they can't even see it. So we really want children to engage in risky play to build self-confidence and self-esteem, and Nature Play really affords that. So I'll show you the findings real quick because I think we took a little bit of time with what we were doing, trying to get the videos to work. So the findings, and focusing again on the 4 top languages. So the first 2 I focused pretend, play, and cooperative because that's really where there's a lot of complex language. And then conflict and minimal language because that was the opposite of that. And so you can see the 3 case study children are here. So there's Stephanie in pink, Danny's orange, and Renata's in the green. And you can see the different amount of languages. So this is the number of words they uttered per 2-minute video, per 2-minute segment of video. And so at the playground, you can see that there's less than 50 words per 2-minute video for each child, pretty much. And Renata even less. Even though she was a very verbal child at the playground, there was just not a lot of conversation happening. At the jardincito, those numbers go up and a lot for Stephanie. And then the classroom is also pretty low. And so then the next 3 slides are going to compare the 3 spaces. So this is the playground. And you can see the different 4 types of languages and the amounts of language per type of language. And so minimal and conflict language are pretty high in the playground, and cooperative and pretend play language are pretty low. In the classroom, cooperative and pretend play language goes up, but conflict and minimal language stay pretty much the same as at the playground. And then at the jardincito, the numbers are pretty flip-flopped, right? So there's very little minimal and conflict language, and there's a lot of cooperative and pretend play language at the jardincito. So the findings really clarified and really made me know that what I thought was happening is what was really in actuality happening. And even when I put the numbers into the Excel spreadsheet and I got these graphs, I was shocked. I didn't think it would be such a big difference in terms of how much language was happening and the type of language that was happening between the playground, the nature playground, and the classroom. And so here are action steps. So here's where we can have a little bit more of a conversation back and forth instead of me just talking to you. So the little action steps that I always tell folks is, to advocate for nature play, knowing what you know and knowing the numbers that I just shared with you. Share this information with everybody, principals, administrators, other teachers, fellow parents, anybody who's willing to listen to you talk about nature play, and go play outside. So take the kids outside. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can get into more of the Q&A part. Okay. So then I think one of the other questions that we had, let me look at those questions that I had provided to you guys was, I'm going to skip for now the second one and just have everyone start thinking about what is one way that you can bring nature-based play and learning to your students. And also thoughts about, what you just learned. I'm going to put, so I can see if you're raising your hand or if you're not obvious in the video, I see.
You're welcome to pop something in the chat if you'd rather not speak, or you can raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Again, we have a pretty small group today, so feel free to share. We would love to hear what you are thinking.
Sure, I can start. I was gonna go in and out, but apparently my boss has pushed the meeting back, so luckily I can stay.
Oh, good. Jenny.
But I wanted to like emphasize, I guess, what I'm seeing at home right now with my own daughter. So she's 3, and I'm always nervous about, this is my mother and me, but my mom was always against us like playing with dirt and like just going outside, and what if you get cut, and oh my god, you're gonna get dirty, and blah blah blah. And with my own kid, just a couple weeks ago, I let her start playing with the dirt, and we started making a little garden, and she was very curious about earthworms. So she picks up the earthworm. She's like, Mommy, I want to play with it. I'm like, okay, we just have to be very gentle. Anyway, the vocabulary she built around earthworms, and we watched one short clip. It was fascinating to see. So now she can explain things like earthworms wiggle. They are slimy. Earthworms eat banana peels. Like, she has such a large now like understanding of earthworms because of this short interactive play outside, getting dirty. So I really appreciate how you're validating and trying to promote more nature play in schools, because I think it's so helpful for our little ones.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, nature gives us that opportunity to touch and smell and hear all of those things that we were thinking about in the beginning of this meeting, is really what makes things so alive for children, right? Literally like earthworms and birds and bugs and things like that, but also just, the dirt, the sand, the smell of it, all of it is really what engages children and activates all of that learning, and activates all of those memories, right? So our strongest memories are memories that we can smell, that are olfactory, that goes through our olfactory system. Those are our strongest memories usually. And so there's no smell to a plastic Rubik's, they're not, what are those, Unifix cubes, right? There's no smell to those teddy bears. But there's a smell to sticks, there's a smell to leaves, and counting those is the same, if not richer, than just counting those little colorful teddy bears that we all have in our classrooms.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's fine. There are more questions, certainly.
I had a quick question. I was just wondering, I'm a cluster teacher for students with special needs in Chicago Public Schools. And like, my kids love being outside, and we do tons of hands-on activities outside, but I always like struggle because I like feel like my kids kind of need things to be like set up beforehand or very systematic. But I noticed that you were saying, and I've heard this a lot before too, to kind of like let the kids guide their own learning. What would you like recommend for that? Just kind of like allowing them like 10, 15 minutes to have like unstructured play where you go outside. Or I was just kind of like wondering more about that in general, like what the best way to go about doing that is.
Yes. So one of the tenets, a few of the tenets of nature play, and again, there's a ton of research out there, so just Google it and really get into, there's like Facebook groups and things like that, a lot of information, but some of the tenets of nature play is that it needs to be unstructured. So you cannot go out there as a teacher with a lesson plan in hand and say, okay, first we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to close and do an exit slip or something, right? It must be unstructured. If you can step back as much as possible, that's the best for children in nature play. And so unstructured and time. So it must be as much time as you can possibly give children to really be able to engage in what they're doing, to really be able to talk to each other and form these, pretend play scenarios. I would take the kids out for 2 hours at a time. And I know pre-K is a little bit more flexible in that, we have most of the time people forget we're even in the building, right? So we can almost do whatever we want sometimes, but I know that the older kids you guys have different, teachers have different requirements that you have to meet, but if you can show your principals this information, if you can bring to them these graphs, which we're going to share, and say, look, children are learning as much outside as they are inside. Can we go outside for 2 hours once a week or twice a week, or push as much as you can and get these kids out every single day for at least an hour, and really give them that time to develop these abilities. And I know a lot of my friends, and as well as other teachers, will say, well, when they go outside, they don't know what to do. And that may be true. They may, the first time you take a group of kids out for an hour, they may just stare at you and be like, what do you want us to do? Because they've never had these experiences at home. Unlike a lot of us, older people who remember being outside until the street lights came on, right? So a lot of our children are not having these experiences, so they don't know what to do. And so you may have to guide a little bit those first experiences, but after a while, you'll notice that the children will just go, and they'll just be so excited to just be children and explore and talk with their friends. And then also in terms of the special ed piece, to note the special ed piece, my classroom is a blended classroom, and in fact, all of the classrooms of Velma Thomas are blended, and we have one instructional room, which I think is what cluster also is the same terminology, I think. And they all go out to the nature playground, and the cluster room goes at least 2-3 times a week, if not more. And
very
we
cool.
really have had a lot of language happening and a lot of cooperation and negotiation, and all of the things that we see with our gen ed kids, we're also seeing with our cluster kids.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Jessica, a couple questions have been coming in through the chat, and then one question actually came in through our registration process. So through that, somebody had asked if there are any efforts that you know of to share nature-based play and learning at Chicago parks or to the public.
Is that Sarah's question? Is that the one you're looking at?
No, this was a question that came in earlier. Yeah, which I thought was really such an interesting question. It seems like the type of thing that, especially right now, it would be sort of the environment would be right for this type of thing.
Yes, there is. So there's a lot of initiatives that are happening right now with the pandemic, because we know research is finding, although this is all new, but research is finding that the virus is diluted outside to a great extent, almost to the point where it would be very difficult to catch outside, especially if it's a windy day. And so the forest, I think they're called Forest Schools of Illinois, which I'm somewhat helping, but with the time I have, but there's a group of people who are pushing to get legislation happening to license forest schools in the state of Illinois. So currently forest play schools are not able to run unless parents are there, because they can't get DCFS licensed. And so they're pushing to get DCFS licensing for nature schools. So hopefully that will happen, especially now with more attention being put on nature play and nature play schools. And then also an organization called Neighborspace is one of the organizations that's building a lot of nature playgrounds in the city of Chicago. I know when I started working at Velma Thomas, I brought my nature play people in, and we revamped the patio play space, and it's now a nature play space. And so, you know, obviously the principal was committed enough to use the money that she had to pay a contractor to make it more nature based. And it looks amazing now. And so that's an option. I know, I think Water School or Bell School on the north side is also doing the same thing. So it's possible that your school on CPS ground can have a nature space. It's just something that the principal has to be willing to put money towards, and time and effort, and then you as a community coming together and helping that happen. But it can happen. So there are nature play school spaces happening on CPS grounds.
And Jessica, that kind of, we will be sharing all of the resources that you are sharing. So any of the organizations that you've worked with, community groups that have helped you develop this whole amazing addition to your school, all of those things will be shared through our resource roundup on our website. So, but Sarah's question was really just kind of digging in a little deeper to what you were just talking about, as far as what is the process of really bringing that play space to a school or a neighborhood. And, she just asked, if you're interested, where might some other people sort of bring the nature play space in? What are some good first steps? And just, again, maybe who to connect with, and aside from getting your principal on board, which is obviously
really it's strength in numbers, right? And so if you have a group of other teachers or neighbors who can come together and really start to say, this is important for these reasons, what can we do? And so I know in our neighborhood, I helped with the neighbors in the neighborhood. We brought a nature play space to the neighborhood. And our alderman was very important. So the alder people have money. They have a slush fund where developers who don't want to put green space on their new developments can put money into this fund. I forget, there's a specific name for this fund. I can't remember what it's called. And that money is earmarked for these sorts of projects. it can be. And so it's something to talk about with your alderperson to say, you know, where's that money and what can we use some of it to build this space. Neighbor Space is another organization that can help acquire vacant land for groups, so for neighbor groups, and also for school groups. You know, there are definitely vacant lots all over the city of Chicago, and there probably is one within a couple blocks of your school. And so that's something to work with Neighbor Space to purchase that land, or to purchase it in the name of your neighborhood group. And so I would also say to teachers is to find neighbors who are also excited and willing to be on this committee, almost like a LSC, if you will, so that if you can't do it on CPS property, you can find a space in the neighborhood, and the neighbors can help with that, and the alderperson and that local community.
And Jessica, did you have pretty immediate buy-in from your colleagues? Were people pretty much on board with this right away? Were they helpful?
Where I did the research at Spry, it was a big school, and so we were in the basement, so really they forgot we were even there. But the principal was more than willing to let me take the kids out, which was great of her, to take the kids, 2-3 times a week out to the nature play garden. The other teacher, unfortunately, I couldn't get buy-in from her. She was like, the one time we took them, they got hurt, and that will happen. And I think that's part of I think, one of the things that as teachers we have to do is come to terms with what is going to happen. They will most likely fall. There'll be some tears, right? But that's part of it. And in fact, the one place that I had the biggest injury in my career as a teacher with a child, she broke her ankle, I think it was on a regular playground. So taking the children to the nature playground, the worst we ever had was like a scratch here and there, or a bump here and there. Because when children are on uneven terrain and they know that, right, you can see this is a log, it's not just a metal step or a plastic step. They think about it. I have so many anecdotes of children standing at the bottom of a very large stump. So at the Jardincito, there was a stump that was like 10 feet tall, and they could climb up to the top of it and sit at the top. And you would see children come up to the stump and just look up at it. And you could hear the gears turning in their head, right? They were assessing their own abilities. Consciously or unconsciously, they were assessing their own abilities and thinking. And some kids would come up to the stump, look at it, and turn around and go play somewhere else. And some kids would climb up it. And every single time the children decided to climb up it, they were able to do it just fine without my intervention. So that's another tenet of nature play, is that you as adults and you as teachers cannot help children get up and down from things that are risky. Because if you help children get up a stump and they weren't able to do it on their own, then they're not learning what they're able to do and what they're not able to do, which then is risky and hazardous for them, because then they think, I can climb this tree, no problem. I did it last time. They don't think I did it last time with my teacher's help. They just think I did it last time. And so they climb up something that they're not really able to do, and they could get hurt. So you cannot help them. You can support them nearby, and you can say, I'm right here, And then we also use a lot of terminology like, make sure your body is safe, make sure your feet are steady, make sure you're holding on with 3 points, like make sure your hands are holding on to something and your foot is on something. So 3 points of contact to a climbing structure or a tree or something like that. And so using this, and I'll put that in the resource roundup too, is like words to say instead of be careful. And there's a whole list of things that you can say instead of saying be careful. Because again, when you say, not again, I haven't said this, but when you say be careful, you're saying to children, you don't know what you're doing, and I need to help you with that. And you're not capable of doing it, right? So we don't want to say be careful to children, because then they start doubting themselves, and that's the opposite of what we want to happen in nature play. So we want to say things like, make sure your body's safe, make sure you're holding on, make sure. So all of these things will be in that resource roundup. But so those are very difficult things for teachers to not help, because the children will yell out, no, I need help, Miss Jessica, please, I can't get down. And you have to say, you can get down. Yeah. Put your foot here. It's very similar to what Ariana did. And I can only hope that she did that because that's what we model. But I don't know. But very similar to what she did with her friend, you would say, okay, put your foot here and then put your hand here and slide down. you can do it, that sort of scaffolding and support.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've seen your presentation multiple times and I love it. And the one thing I pull out having children who are young, pre-K age, is the be careful thing. And every single time I catch myself saying it to one of my boys, I pause and I'm like, Jessica taught me. I know I can say it in a different way. And it's amazing how different it feels. And I think their reaction to it is different too, which is really, really great. So I think we have time for one more question. Sol popped a question in the chat, a great one. She was saying she's a huge advocate for outside nature play, and her pre-K students love going out as well. She's had some parents push back though about dirty clothes and rips on clothing and that sort of thing. Any sort of tips on how to talk to parents about the importance of this and sort of ensuring that that's prioritized over, a grass stain or two?
Yes. And this is very important. Thank you, Sol, for asking that question, because that is part of being an anti-bias educator, right? Is to think about cultural differences to your own culture. And even though I strongly believe in nature play, I need to acknowledge and accept that I sometimes get upset with parents when they say, oh, they're going to get dirty, and I need to check myself with that and understand that this is coming from different cultural perspectives, right? Some families send their children, and this is true in Mexican communities, and I know because I worked with these, I'm not Mexican myself, but I know, and also in Guatemala, where I am from, but families will send their children in their best clothes because school is very important, right? School is where you can get ahead in life. The teacher is like the not God, but like, she's like, oh, the maestra, and they don't even say your name. They say maestra, like that title. And so families will send their children in their best clothes to respect the school, to respect the teacher. And so that's just a conversation to have with families, is to acknowledge, I completely understand, the school is very important to you. That's why you send your children, and you don't want them to get dirty. And I would start with families the same way that we started today, and have them think about their favorite childhood memory, right? And 99.9% of the time, they're going to say, oh, it was climbing a tree, or it was getting in the river, or it was playing in the dirt, making mud pies, or it was getting dirty, right? So connecting them back to their own childhood is a very powerful way to get people to buy in. And you can also do this if you guys are thinking about forming committees at your school or neighborhoods or whatever. Start any meeting with that so that people really connect back to why this is important, because everybody has those amazing nature memories. And so I think if you can connect families back to that, and then also share with them that research and what you think children are going to learn, and we're going to learn from nature play. And then finally, just giving them that notice, say every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to go outside. We're going to be there for a long time. Please send your children in their dirtiest clothes, or in their clothes that you don't mind getting dirty with. Because we can't put an apron on and go outside to a nature play space, right? When you're painting at an easel. So just give families that fair warning so that they know, okay, it's Tuesday. They have to go in their jeans and a sweatshirt and just, sneakers, and prepare families for that.
Great, Jessica, thank you. And I think Leslie has her hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly, I know everybody wants to go, but I want to give a huge shout out to Jessica, and I'm going to tell you why. About 2 years ago, I saw some video on, I don't know, some social media, maybe Facebook or something, and it was a bunch of kids like kind of going off into the woods, like at a forest school, and they were like climbing trees and playing with knives and doing all kinds of things that just freak me out, and I just loved it so much. And I started researching a little bit, started reading a little bit. And then a few months after that, I attended one of your sessions where I did see your full presentation that we saw today in the video. And I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I'm interested in. And I, kind of want to follow this. And I started doing more research, and I got my co-teacher across the hall into it. So Miss Rodriguez, shout out to her. And I said, can you go with me and apply for a Fund for Teachers grant? And we emailed you, got some information, some data from you, and we won.
Oh, no way!
Yeah, we are going going due to COVID. We were supposed to
Take
go
me
this
with you. I
week.
should have done it with you.
We can't. I'm opening that up to you and to everybody on the panel today. We're actually going to Prague and to Denmark due to COVID next year. In Denmark, we will be meeting with a movie producer and her husband who did a documentary called Nature Play, Take Childhood Back. It's a documentary based on nature play, and they are the producers and directors and everything of this movie. And so she's going to be taking us on a 3 or 4 day study tour, which is depending on how much we want to go, 3 days or 4 days. And that will be open to people. If anybody wants the information, thank you. We can send out the information. It is about $800 or $900 for the 3 or 4 day study. But if anybody's interested, she's going to take us all over Denmark to different forest schools where the children actually learn all day, every day outside. And then from there, we're going to, because we want to see how do you pull it off in a big city, right? So we're Chicago public school teachers. We do have a Chicago park a couple blocks away, but how do we really pull this off without a forest, right? So we're going to Prague and we're visiting different schools in Prague that just do a nature-based style of, teaching or learning there. And so yeah, if anybody, it would be hard to have you join us in the Prague portion, but the Denmark portion is definitely open to other people who are interested in attending. And maybe I can send that information to Sarah. Yes. And I just want to say, Jessica, you rock. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because of your data and your information and your research was a little, we only had 10,000 characters. So it was a tiny little blurb, but who knows if it's what put us over the edge and helped us. So I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And hopefully when we get back, we are going to share everything on social media. We will have an Instagram page and a Facebook page that we will blog. And hopefully we're going to be able to bring this back to CPS and get like the big wigs in CPS to bring more of a nature-based learning to preschools in CPS. So
that's great. Oh, I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you.
Loop me in. I would love to help. That's amazing, Leslie. Thank you so much.
Leslie, please do send all of that information to me. We have it through our database because you won Fun for Teachers through us. But it would be great to have like the specific things that you were talking about. I think it's clear a lot of people are interested. So thank you for sharing that. That's just wonderful. Jessica, it's been such a pleasure. I love having you, and you're just so wonderfully articulate about this work and how important it is. And I think everyone on this call feels the passion for what you do and how important it is for all of our students, especially the little guys and gals. So we did have one question from one of our volunteers on the call. She was curious if you could, I'll follow up with you after the call, but to include also maybe some photos of your space at the school.
Okay.
I know that the video will have up, but it's sometimes nice to see stills of kind of what the space looks like. So for everyone else, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions that didn't get answered or something you'd like to talk to one of us about on the CFE team or Jessica, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here for you. We know it has been an incredibly challenging, very, very emotional time, and we are supportive and just really want to build you up and professionalize you and ensure that you know that you have a home with CFE. And if there's anything we can offer, any chat ideas you have, anything you'd like to see us do or see us support, please reach out, and we are all ears. So we hope you take care of yourselves, have wonderful weekends, be safe, and we will reach out early next week with all of the resources and the recording and everything, so you'll have that to rewatch and revisit whenever you please. So thank you so much, and Jessica, thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.